Welcome to today's show, everybody. Very excited to have back on the channel Scott Melker, the Wolf of all streets. He is a crypto trader, crypto analyst, got a great newsletter, a great podcast where he's talking to some of the absolute leaders in the space about what the heck is going on. Amazing conversations over there. And of course, a great Twitter account to follow as well. X. We got to call it X now, guys. An X account to follow. Scott, welcome back.
Thanks, man. I still call it Twitter. I just can't get past it.
I know. All the time. Well, let's get right into the juicy stuff, man, because we've been on a crazy rally for Bitcoin in particular. It's been going nuts. We've seen some big moves in the altcoin space as well, but let's just dive right in. What are your thoughts on this current Bitcoin rally? How high are you thinking we could possibly go before a Bitcoin ETF approval? What happens if we don't get a Bitcoin ETF approved?
Well, I hope this is coming out really soon because the price action changes so fast that any prediction can be wrong by 10 to 20% within 24 hours, it seems.
True.
As we're talking about this, we're sitting just below 44,000. To be quite frank, if you're looking at it technically, I would have expected 42,000 to be a very obvious resistance. It basically lasted for about a day. Price continued up. If you're looking at a retracement of the 69 highs down to the lows of FTX, I think you get around 48,000, somewhere in there. Bitcoin loves that 61.8% to 65% golden pocket retracement from the highs down to the lows, retracing back. So maybe 48,000 is a very reasonable target. The question is that there's just fundamentally something different happening here. If there's some kind of buyer in preparation of the ETF that's just kind of hitting the bid no matter what on any price and pushing price up. And that's certainly what it feels like here. But, I think that we're very due a pause, certainly, and some sort of correction. We know that no matter how vibrant this bull market is, we will get those 30% corrections that absolutely terrify people and shake them out. I think the talk of super cycles and things like that is just already hyperbolic nonsense. Never goes down, new paradigm. It makes me want to sell everything that I'm already seeing those words in the news, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see us in the 48 to 50 range. I will say I would be very surprised, happily, if all of a sudden we're like making new all-time highs before we even get to the halving or something like that, right? So I think we can still go a little bit higher, but hard to predict. When Bitcoin starts going, the charts kind of fly out the window.
The bid has been relentless on Bitcoin. I've been blown away by this. Watching the charts, like there's been no mercy, no pullbacks for those who are sidelined waiting to buy like super low. It just has not been happening. It's just been this steady grind up, and every once in a while we just shoot up and then grind and then shoot up, and it's been wild to see. Who do you think's buying?
I don't know, man. There's always rumors out there, and none of them ever come true, right? So it could be any of the Bitcoin ETF applicants seeding their fund, but we already saw that BlackRock literally seeded with $100,000 and stopped there. So I think it's unlikely that BlackRock is sitting on the bid and buying relentlessly. There's obviously been rumors that the Qatari Sovereign Wealth Fund could be buying, a couple $100 million worth or billions of dollars. I don't even remember what the number is. That's one person. But frankly, I think this could, if it's not an individual on the bid or a few, this could just be sort of the groundswell of institutions trying to get ahead of the Bitcoin spot ETF. I mean, we all know that over 70% of coins haven't moved in a few years, all the sort of memes that we discuss all the time that holders have been holding, right? They didn't sell at 69,000. They didn't sell at 17,000. They're not going to sell now. And so I think there's just a lack of supply even coming ahead of the halving. And there's a really compelling narrative, which is the ETF for people to be buying. And so even a minimal amount of increased buying pressure when there's nobody selling really can continue to send price. It's not like volumes are insane, right? So it's still happening on very reasonable volume. There's nothing crazy happening here. I just think that there's a lot of institutions, maybe a number of individuals positioning ahead of what they think will be an approval of this Bitcoin spot ETF.
I've heard, and I kind of agree with actually, the sentiment that the Bitcoin ETF is going to be a buy the rumor, buy the news kind of event. Although I think we get that potential short-term sell the news, but fundamentally, if you look at the daily charts, yeah, probably buy the rumor, sell the news. Look at the weekly, monthly charts, probably buy the rumor, buy the news, because of the institutional shift in money into the asset class. Do you agree with that sentiment?
It's tough. I think that you just buy. You dollar cost average over time, and you don't really worry about it too much because it's very hard to trade around news events, and really nobody knows what's going to happen in that regard, right? So here's what I would say. I wouldn't short the news. I wouldn't short Bitcoin at all when we're in sort of a parabolic run up. So maybe it's a buy the rumor, buy the news, or buy the rumor, buy the dip after the news instead of sell the news sort of
Mhm.
event. But I can't really see selling. So even if you listen, if there's a humongous God candle, price goes flying, and you want to take some profit, Godspeed, man. I would never blame anybody for taking something off the table. But I just don't think there's any way to skin this as a fundamentally bearish event and a reason to get out of the market, right? So I think taking some off the table, if there's something you need to do in your life, always a good idea. I know that's unpopular to ever say sell your Bitcoin or any other token if you're part of the community, but if you can take a percentage of that and meaningfully change your life, I would say you do that. But I think that the initial reaction should be very, very positive.
It's a nice reminder that it's all just numbers on a screen until you click sell at some point. And look, everybody has different sell points. Everybody has different reasons for selling, and sell shaming should never happen. If you got to sell, you got to sell. If you want to sell, you can sell. Understand the risk and opportunity in that. The risk, of course, prices could go much higher. The opportunity, of course, that maybe you sell at a great time and you can buy lower. You never know how markets are going to play out. And even the cleverest analysts don't get everything right 100% of the time. Heck, the cleverest analysts, if they can get things right 55% of the time, 60% of the time, they're slaying it. That's how
Absolutely
markets
killing
work.
it. Yeah, absolutely killing it. That's right. It's all about risk management, right? You can be wrong 70, 80% of the time, but if you take very small planned losses and you let your runners run, you're in massive profit. So you want to be right, or do you want to be profitable, right?
That's right. That's can't always be both, guys. Can't always be both. Now, here's scenario. They deny the Bitcoin ETF. What happens in that scenario?
Bad. That's the sort of left field black swan, only 10% chance that'll happen by January, according to Bloomberg analysts, that I think would really, really dampen excitement in the market. I think we'd see a pretty major sell off, and it would remain that way until we had some other major catalyst. So the consensus on it being approved does give me slight pause. Everybody seems to know that this thing is coming and that it's inevitable. And what if it's not? This is Gary Gensler that we're talking about, right? But I would say that all evidence, and it appears that the SEC is going out of their way to expend money, resources, staff to actually interact with BlackRock and ARK and Bitwise and Grayscale, even, who they just lost to in court, right? I mean, they got sued by Grayscale. They lost, and they're actively engaging with Grayscale on a conversion of GPTC to an ETF. So I think that all the signs are there that it would be approved, but I think that that is the single black swan, worse than a Binance issue or a Tether issue or anything in the short term that would hurt the market.
I've been wondering, when I lay in bed at night or in the shower or something, I've been sitting around and like, what if by January 10th, the SEC is just not ready? Because you see how everything's rushing so fast at the moment, and the holidays are coming up. They're not going to be working on Christmas Day, guys. They're not going to be working on New Year's Day. It's like, what if they don't get all their ducks in a row in terms of all the amendments that they want to see to these applications, and they have to turn to ARK on the 10th and say, guys, we need to deny it because we've reached the end of our period here, but reapply, and we'll keep working with you on that. That would be, of course, they won't say it like that, but that would be a crazy potential that we could see then in March, perhaps the ETFs being approved if we have that early denial on just because it's only ARK. It's only ARK. They're the only one who has a final deadline in January.
That's right. I think there's this idea that they're just going to sweepingly approve everyone and let them fight like gladiators for AUM when the approval comes. But yeah, what if they just reject ARK and send everybody else down the road? It's totally possible at the SEC, and it could be just one technicality that gets ARK rejected, that they just didn't file correctly. I mean, they're actively working with the SEC, so that shouldn't happen. And then it could panic the market massively, and then we could just see, the next ones come along and actually have their applications in line and get approved. I could see that. I just think that everyone's doing their best right now in direct contact with the SEC to prepare and get these filed correctly.
Yeah, we're talking about, guys. We're talking about situations which think about the flip side of the coin. I think most likely what most people are thinking right now, and the analysts are thinking, that we are going to get that Bitcoin ETF approval coming sooner than later. But just see the other side of the coin from time to time. Now, with Bitcoin, big story, obviously, with everything happening to the ETFs. But on the back of that, altcoins have been going crazy. Now, some have been lagging behind when Bitcoin has these big moves. Others have been taking big moves. But what altcoins have you been trading? What altcoins have you been watching? What's on your radar right now?
Yeah, I haven't been trading very much, to be quite honest. I'm still, I largely held most of what I didn't take profit near the top. I held the rest through, and I'm just enjoying watching them recover back to being down 95% instead of 99% or 70% instead of 85%, right? Because I was a believer. And so largely I didn't want to drop those tokens. And so I held them. I do think that the narratives of the last market that were a bit too early will be very compelling in the coming market, right? So DeFi was early, NFTs were early, metaverse was early. We have this human condition where we expect everything to happen exceptionally fast, and then it takes a while. But the flip side of that human condition is once it goes parabolic, we have no understanding of just how exponential that growth can be. So I think that we were just too early on most of the narratives in the last cycle. So I'm still really pretty bullish on the general sort of buckets that we've put things into: gaming, NFTs, metaverse, DeFi. I think DePIN is pretty compelling right now. And I think real world assets, if we can find a way to actually invest in that, is going to be this is going to be the first iteration in this cycle, but probably will take to another cycle until we actually see it take off, just like all of those other narratives before. And I also think a lot of that will happen on private institutional blockchains. And so it won't be that investable. JP Morgan, Onyx, BlackRock sending a money market fund that's tokenized to Barclays in a matter of seconds, cheap, and using it as collateral. That's amazing, but that doesn't help us as the market. It's just really an adoption of the technology. So listen, I think that Solana has a very powerful, compelling narrative going into the next cycle, obviously, but it also gives me that feeling of those other sort of metaverse fall NFT summer vibes, right? Solana led here. Everyone's expecting it to, 100x from this price or something. Maybe that happens. Maybe all of this stuff is built on Solana, or maybe in 2 months, everybody just moves on to something else. I'll tell you this, that right now, Ethereum is a major laggard. And I think that's an opportunity, not an indictment of its value or potential. So I think that, I've been pretty bullish on all of the bottoming signals for Ethereum right here, and I really think it could fly soon.
And we've just had this major breakout on Ethereum as well. You look at the weekly charts, and it's just like, whoa, we had the highest weekly candle closes here for 18 months or something like that.
Yeah.
It's a big move on Ethereum, and it's catching up. And what's crazy with Ethereum is it's this giant flywheel, which is all like centered back to the black hole of Ethereum itself. All this stuff happening on Ethereum, Optimism, Arbitrum, ZK Sync, Starknet, 10 other layer 2 networks. Everything has a positive feedback into Ethereum itself. So when you start to understand all these different factors that come into play, the burning of fees and everything that's coming, the upcoming upgrades for layer 2 is going to 10x to 100x decrease the fees for layer 2s. Like, there's a lot of big stuff going on. But when you understand that, and then, of course, we're going to have an Ethereum ETF following a Bitcoin ETF. So
let's hope.
Let's hope. Fingers crossed, right? Fingers crossed. Yeah, ETH definitely. Look, if you use layer 1 Ethereum, it sucks.
Yeah, I mean, that's the compelling case for Solana, right? And even layer 2s, then you have to worry about bridging, and it's kind of complex. And they're just things I think your average person's not going to understand. But I am pretty bullish on them figuring out the UI and UX, narratives moving forward. I think that those things just take time to make it really usable for mainstream.
That's right. And you got to remember too, with the Ethereum developers, they've pulled off some incredible stuff, like moving from proof of work to proof of stake. That was no small feat. And they did it.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible.
So, this is a bunch of gigabrain nerds that deliver. So don't bet against Ethereum, guys. I'm not. I got a bag of Ethereum, and it's chilling.
Absolutely true, man. Absolutely true.
I want to get your thoughts on some of the more proxy bets in the market, because we've seen with this renewed enthusiasm towards crypto markets more broadly, especially towards Bitcoin, some of the stocks have really been moving. So are you in Coinbase stocks? And what's your kind of thoughts on it?
Massively in Coinbase, just breaking even because I bought all the way down from the first week. And so pretty happy to not be underwater on Coinbase. I'm bullish on Coinbase becoming one of the most impactful, powerful companies in the world. I really am, especially with the centralization of, power with the other offshore exchanges sort of being neutered a bit by regulators. And I just think that a lot of things are in Coinbase's favor. It's obviously where we'll be seeing largely the custody and security sharing agreements with the ETFs, right? When you have BlackRock talking about Coinbase, I think that that's probably a pretty big deal. And so I'm very bullish on Coinbase. I'm also really bullish. I had a conversation with Mike Alfred recently about Bitcoin miners, and he got me buying, and they were way up even since I bought them, a week, 2 weeks ago. If you believe Bitcoin is going to go up, that's a high beta opportunity to really almost take a leverage position on Bitcoin, which sounds scary, but it's not the kind of leverage you get liquidated on, right? You're just holding a stock and it tends to go up more. So, I mean, listen, if we think that the market's going into a bull market, I think Coinbase captures a massive amount of that, and that miners, if you buy the right ones, will do exceptionally well.
Are there any Bitcoin miners in particular that you've taken an interest in?
Iris Energy. And that's specifically just because my friend Mike, he broke it down for me. There was a point not so long ago that literally they owned so much infrastructure. You want to look at the miners that own the infrastructure, because then they have real value underlying their position, not people who are renting or who have like electricity problems that could be going up and down at any given time. They're literally the value of the entire company in terms of stock price was less than the value of the assets, hard assets that they held, even outside of how much Bitcoin they do or don't mind. And it's gone absolutely sort of mini parabolic since then. But that's one that I'm bullish on just because I understood it and did a deeper dive. But I think to a degree, the halving is going to really call out the ones who are not running efficient businesses, right? So it's going to get ugly for a lot of these miners in April. So you do have to be careful there.
Yeah, that's a very good point. The Bitcoin mining game is super competitive, super tight margins a lot of the time. And really, these companies, the ones that can survive, understand the game on a deep level. And like you said, they have the ability to have their own infrastructure and stuff like that, because little variations in power prices or rents and stuff like this can send what looks like a profitable company at the start into the red, essentially. So this is something to keep in mind when you guys are looking at those Bitcoin mining stocks. But it's very, very interesting. We've seen huge gains for Coinbase, huge gains for miners, and this is a really interesting thing, because until we get that Bitcoin ETF, these are going to continue to be very interesting things, but they're also go beyond a Bitcoin ETF, because if you're bullish on crypto more broadly, Coinbase becomes a very interesting opportunity, because it really gives you exposure to everything happening in crypto, including their like layer 2 network and all this kind of stuff. All that value flows back to the Coinbase stock. And unlike a governance token, you actually get value out of the Coinbase stock. You just got rights, right? So that's very interesting as well. So final question here to get you off today is what do you see? Maybe that's not the best way to put it, huh? Guys, we're getting Scott off here. All right, here we go.
All right.
All right.
It did take a turn at the end.
Anyway, to finish up for the day, what are your thoughts for 2024 here? Do you think that we are going to really see like potential top in 2024, or maybe the top comes in 2025, as it has more historically done around these moments of the Bitcoin halving, and tops coming 12 to 18 months after the Bitcoin halving, so to speak? What do you think?
Yeah, all bets are off, and I'm terrible at predictions, especially when they're attached to time. I hate making them like everybody else does, because you're going to be wrong, right? So, but that's my caveat and my disclaimer. I would say that we're ahead of the 4-year cycle at this point, obviously, with where price is. Because of this fundamental underpinning of the Bitcoin spot ETF news, right? And approval likely. Assuming it gets approved, I think we, start going much higher this year, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a very boring down summer like we tend to after the halving, really ramp up at the end of 2024, and then 2025 going absolutely parabolic. Listen, the 4-year cycle, we don't have that many examples, and each market is different. But if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. So I'm still kind of just prove to me otherwise that it's not going to happen, and I'll just look at 2025 as really the the front half of 2025 is really the time to start thinking about taking profit and watching out for the FOMO and euphoria that we'll all be feeling.
Yeah, it does. In spite of all this very fundamental stuff with the Bitcoin ETF, it just means we can go much higher than we were expecting to go, but it doesn't necessarily change the fundamentals of human behavior.
That's right.
The greed, the FOMOing at the top, all this kind of stuff.
And when that
guys, you know
happens,
how it
there's going to
works.
be somebody with a whole lot of Bitcoin looking to take advantage and trigger a sell off, right? So it's listen, we will have more cycles. We will, we'll have these massive. This is Bitcoin. We're going to have these massive downturns. We're going to have altcoins get absolutely wrecked, especially 99% of them, and that's fine. Just take some profit this time.
Yep, take some profit this time, guys. And look, when we talk about all these institutions getting into the space, oh, they're going to bring all their money. Yeah, and they're going to sell at some point. The institutions came in last time too, and they bought hundreds of millions of dollars, in some cases more, worth of Bitcoin. And guess what? They sold. They sold and took profits, guys. And that's when the market started trending down. So just keep that in mind when all the greed indicators and the euphoria and Coinbase apps at number one, and your old friends calling you asking about dog coins you haven't talked to in 20 years. Get out. Run.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
Scott, great chat today, man. Thank you so much for joining. Of course, guys, I'll put a link down below to Scott's X account so you can go check him out over there. Thank you so much.
You said X that time. Good job. I got to get you on my channel, man. We got to reciprocate. This is great. Thank you.
Thank you.